Good morning. Today we are going to be taking a look at one of the pro games played about a day ago, Maru versus Creator in the Pro League it's a TvP on Frost, and I'm going to be outlining Maru's very aggressive play and how he boom 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 his opponents. So it'll make more sense once I am able to point it out to you, but basically what Maru does is he does a series of attacks that just slowly chip away at his opponent, who is Creator Prime. Now, we know he's not a bad player. He's been playing at this level since all the way back in Wings of Liberty. And Maru just makes him look like an absolute fool. One thing that I also noticed while watching this VOD is that Maru also particularly likes to cater his build in order to complement his very aggressive style. And so, cross positions Frost. First of all, on a 4-player map, Frost, it's very difficult to, I guess, play on it in some matchups because you have cross positions Frost, where you can basically go up to 4 bases, and then you have vertical positions Frost, and you have horizontal positions Frost, and each different position of Frost is going to require slightly different changes to your plan. So let's say you want to deny, or you want to like drop into the main base of your opponent, and if you're cross positions, you can either go through the natural to the main, or you can go from the third to the main. But if you're, let's say, vertical positions, then you have a better chance of going through, or you have a shorter distance of going through the natural, but it's also harder to go from this third over here because it's farther away, and you're gonna have to go through the watchtower or skirt way past it so that no one can see you. Maru, he's not really adapting his play style at all. He probably does Reaper expand on 95% of the maps, and there's really no reason not to do it. Although this map isn't particularly well suited for Reapers, Reapers do serve multiple purposes, such as being able to pin down the Protoss units in specific places, and it also acts as a small little, it lets you check little pieces of the Protoss army and build, and I guess Protoss city, the Protoss city that Creator's creating, and it lets you piece together different information. Like, let's say you sacrifice the Reaper in, or like you send the Reaper in, you see 2 Stalkers and the Mothership Core. That means there's no Sanctuary. That means you skipped a Zealot. There's just different little pieces of information that give you clues to what the Protoss player is doing. And in this case, Creator Prime went for Nexus first. It's pretty common to do on this map, and because Maru was able to scout him kinda last, he's not going to get much economic damage done with this Reaper, because the Mothership Core is going to be out soon, and that's pretty much signals the end of the Reaper. He's only able to get 1 probe, and if he was able to scout Creator Prime first, then it would have been a build order advantage for Maru, because his Reaper would have known exactly where to go to. And usually a Reaper, if you like try to target probes and you don't try to kill the Zealot, you can get a few probe kills. It's a good amount, and you don't get very far behind because your command center is also fairly easy, or fairly early. Alright, so enough of the small talk. Maru, he likes to go concussive shells. I've noticed he's done it in more than a couple of his games. It seems to be something he mixes up with going for a fast stim. He gets a fast concussive shells, and the purpose that this serves is it lets Maru to be aggressive right off of the bat. So when he pushes out with a Marauder and like 7 to 8 marine entourage. Any stalkers that try to kite those marines, and some Protoss players do this, like they'll be at the watchtower and then they'll slowly kite back your army so that by the time you get to the natural, it's going to be a little bit weaker. But what the Marauder and Concussive Shells does at this time is it basically forces the Protoss to lose a unit if they get in range of the Marauder. And that's pretty cool to do because Creator Prime, we can see he's only going to be on one gateway for quite a while. So killing gateway units right now is pretty good. It's a pretty good deal for Maru, and like he's only now starting his second gateway. So let's say Creator Prime has like 2 stalkers. I think he has like 2 stalkers, a zealot, and a sentry. If you're able to kill a stalker like right here and he can't run away, that's already 25% of Creator's standing army that just died, not including the Mothership Core. And even though this might not win the game immediately, it does set Maru up. Okay, so it's just, but it was still 4 units, but it wasn't 2 stalkers. Anyways, by killing the stalker like that, it sets Maru up in a great position to snowball or snowball by like sniping these kinds of units off. So he's already killed a stalker and a zealot, and that's pretty big because Creator's only on one gateway, so it's going to take him a while to replenish that. And most players, they might back up by the time that Maru like snipes off the zealot. You might snipe off the zealot, force an overcharge, and then back off. But Maru wants to take this one step farther because his playstyle, since it's so aggressive and he picks apart his opponents, or he tries to anyways, and it works pretty well, he tries to get a snowballing effect as early as possible. And part of this is by being able to force the Protoss to do as many things as possible. So right now he's forcing the photon overcharge. He's killed a stalker. He's killed a zealot. Nope, he's gonna kill a zealot. And then on top of this, he also forces 2 force fields because he continues to engage in the photon overcharge. And this might seem like this might not make sense at first, but if you can kill a sentry or force 2 force fields, and he also he forced a zealot warp in as well, and that's a unit that Creator Prime could have spent to get his tech out faster, or to get more probes out or something. Basically, Creator Prime did not want to make that zealot, but he had to because he was being pressured, and he ended up using 2 force fields as well, which really depletes the sentry's energy for Maru's next timing attack, which is going to hit in a couple minutes. So Maru loses, he loses like about half of his marine force there, but I would say that's completely worth it for a photon overcharge, 2 force fields, 1 zealot, and 1 stalker. So this attack has already done a great amount of damage. As we can see here, Creator Prime is being extremely greedy. He has +1/+1 going down, which is like, that's already fairly greedy, and then he has Blink and a Robo Bay as well. So this is basically as greedy as Creator Prime could possibly be, and he only has 2 gateways. These are his 3rd and 4th gateways that he's just getting right now. So the damage that Maru did was pretty significant in stopping Creator Prime's production for a minimum of 1 warp gate round to be able to replenish those units that he lost. And I just want to point out that Maru, he ended up getting a factory. Yeah, he gets a factory before he gets stim, which is what I think very interesting about his build. So not only does he get concussive shells, the next 100 gas he has is going straight to a factory, and he only has 1 gas as well. So if that's not crazy enough, he's doing this all off of 1 gas, but it's understandable because stim is 100 gas, but concussive and marauder is only 75. So now the factory's going down before concussive shells is even done, and he still only has 1 gas, as we can see on the mini-map, which is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. And this Reaper, it is able to scout absolutely. Oh, scouts the Robo Bay. So one of the reasons why you might not want to do a push like this that Maru just did is that you don't see the Protoss tech, and if you move out when they have an Oracle, you're gonna lose a bunch of workers. So the fact that Maru was able to see the Robo Bay, or the robotics facility, as some people like to call it, means that he's able to safely do this push, because it's not going to be DT drops aren't going to be fast enough to stop this or counterattack with DTs, and there's not going to be any other additional tech besides the robotics facility. And Creator Prime's just being extremely greedy by getting a double forge after this. And now we can see Maru's stim has just started, but his starport's also on the way as well. So he was really emphasizing how much or how fast he wants his factory to get out and the amount of units he's producing. And he's basically cutting his upgrades in order to get a larger army and faster tech out, or faster production tech out. And he's cutting his upgrades. Yeah, no, I said that right. Okay, cool. And then he also gets a very, very fast second tech lab as well. And he's going to be getting combat shields relatively soon so that he can still hit a stim combat, or a stim +1 combat shield timing. They are all going to line up and finish at around the same time. So since this is cross positions frost, it is a lot farther of a rush distance, so it gives, even like Creator Prime's build right now, even though it's really greedy, it is cross positions frost, so it does kind of work in his favor because there's a longer rush distance. But Maru still does a great job at exploiting Creator Prime's just slight unit positions being just out of position by just a little bit, like an inch or two. And Maru, he's playing a completely standard game. He has 3 barracks. He's just emphasized his tech a lot, and he's taking his 3rd base really fast. Everything looks pretty normal for now, and he's moving out with these units before the medvacs so that he might be able to get some damage done or pick off a pylon or 2. It's always good to be out and about with these units. Oh, and like you move around with those units, and then the medvacs can speed boost towards your army, so it's kind of just effectively maximizing the amount of time that or the amount of things that you can do from the time it takes to get from your natural to your opponent's natural. So, now this is the very important battle that I was talking a little bit about earlier on in the game. Or in the video, not the game. Sorry, I better drink some coffee while I leave you guys in suspense. Alright. So this is perfect time to be paused. We can see Maru, he's immediately going for the Colossi. He has stim concussive shells. And Creator Prime, he has a Guardian Shield up. He's using his Zealots. I don't think they have charge yet. Yeah, they don't have charge to tank damage to try to shoo Maru away. And let's see what happens here. Surprise, surprise. He gets the Immortal. So, hopefully, I'd really like to see the Sanctuary energy, because if we remember here, these are the same 2 Sanctuaries that came with Maru's first concussive shell push, or that were here with Maru's first concussive shell push. These 2 Sanctuaries have 1 less force field each, and as a result, I don't know how the energy stacks up exactly, but he did 1 Guardian Shield and he had 1 force field, and that was kind of a random force field as well. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like Creator Prime had enough energy until he had 50 energy, and then he placed his force field down like as soon as possible, but he couldn't because he didn't have enough energy beforehand. And this is one of the snowball effects that Maru has produced as a result of pushing so far into Creator Prime space and forcing some force field and photon overcharge energy to be expended. And that's also a reason why Maru is able to get the immortals so easily, because if Creator Prime had 2 more force fields, he could have done a Guardian Shield, and then he could have done 2 force fields to force field off Maru's army and to trap it in between the Zealots and the Colossi beams and the force fields. And so Maru would have had to pick up and get out of there immediately. But as a result, he's able to finish off the Colossi and then go directly into the natural. And what has Creator Prime done? He has used up Guardian Shields, Force Field, and he lost the Mortal. So he's basically just used even more of his energy than ever before to try to mitigate the damage that Maru's doing. This is one of the things that separates Maru from the other players, is that he knows when he's able to pick off units. So he's going to see this Colossi, or he's going to see this Immortal, and he's going to see this Colossi, and since there's only one Colossi out, you know at this timing, 10 minutes and 30 seconds, that extended thermal lance is not going to be finished. So this Colossi is not nearly as good as it can be. When Maru darts in, he sees the Immortal. It's also kind of bad that Creator Prime has his Immortal so far forward. He could have done a better job by keeping it in the back, in which Maru would have just picked off maybe a Sentry or a Stalker, or a couple Zealots in the worst case scenario, and then backed up. But the Mortal is in the front, and he's able to quickly pick it off. And the Colossi, it's already done a couple shots, but none of the other units have done any damage yet. Only the Colossus has done a couple little ticklers with his laser pointers. The Zealots didn't do any damage. The Sentry, oh my god, this lag. Alright. So the Sentries, they're going to tickle the units. The Stalker, it's going to maybe peck away a little bit, but nothing too serious. And all these Zealots that's part of Creator's army, they're going to be able to do no damage whatsoever. By the time that they actually get in range to do damage, Maru has already picked off this Immortal and boosted away. And he's only lost like 3 Marines to kill the Immortal, which is a very good trade-off for him. And now he gets to boost over here because at this timing, Creator doesn't have enough units to be able to defend both bases. Well, rather he does, because he's made a bunch of Zealots, but he's had to keep his army very close together to be able to deal with Maru's army so that he doesn't get picked apart. And another cool thing that Maru also does is that Creator's in a very defensive position over here. And what Maru is able to do, he is able to bait Creator Prime out far enough away from the natural so that he can't quickly reinforce his main. And that's what helps Maru's decision to go into the main base at this time. Now if we take a look, Creator Prime's army, it's kinda out of position now. It's farther from the ramp than if it was over here. So it's definitely a mistake to engage this army outside of photon overcharge range. I think the best move for Creator would have been to throw down another photon overcharge, but to be fair, I think he was purposely trying not to do that and instead conserve that energy for Maru's drops later on. And we all know that Maru is a very aggressive dropper. So it's not completely unreasonable that Creator Prime was trying to take an engagement here, but as a result, Maru is able to abuse that and drop directly into the main and take advantage of Creator's slight out-positioning of his army. Oh, that Colossi. Now Creator Prime's forced to use the photon overcharge, so he ultimately ends up using it now, and he still loses an Immortal, so I definitely think it would have been better for Creator Prime to just stay in his natural. And Maru's doing a great job. He snipes this Colossi. And that's Creative Prime. His look on his face knows that that was a mistake. And Maru just took advantage of that. It's always nice to snipe a Colossi off. And Maru's priority system and what units he wants to target are Colossi, Immortals, Stalker, Sentry. Basically all the units that cost gas. Zealots are just the cheap cannon fodder that you put in cannons, but Colossus is the ICBM, the Sentry is the grenades, Stalker is the bazooka, you know, all the better weapons than just old 18th century cannons. And then he picks off another Sentry because Creator has already used all of his energy, so there's nothing this army can do. And now he's kind of just falling apart. He has double upgrades going, and he's taking a third base very, very greedily after losing a Colossi, an Immortal, and a Sentry. And now this is more of a mistake from Creator's point than it is from Maru doing anything particularly exceptional. This is Maru just playing very standard. Because Creator's taking this third base really early, he is going to be spreading himself very, very thin between his three bases, and Maru is going to exploit that advantage because the only reason you should take a third base this early is because you have been able to deal a significant amount of damage by like shutting down Maru's first two medvacs so that there's not going to be any early game pressure for at least another minute until the second two medvacs come out. So, if you ever see a Protoss player taking a third base like this so fast, then you know that your drop play is going to work even better because there's going to be more areas for the Protoss to defend. Now, Creator Prime's army, he's dangerously out of position. It's not a good idea for him to have taken this third because he can't defend it. He should have really just turtled up into his natural and tried to do a really strong attack because he has double upgrades going on. And wow, Maru is able to pick off the second Sentry. The ability of Maru to ignore the units that don't matter like Zealots and make every single shot count, like picking off the Sentry, allows him to get such good trades off because he knows exactly what to look for, and when they get out of position, he snipes the unit. Now this is like alright just because of the fact that he's able to get a Stalker. Like it's just little things like that that just slowly add up. Creator Prime, so far on the death count, he lost the Stalker at the Watchtower, Zealot at the Natural, and these are just units. And then an Immortal with the first two medvacs, a Colossi with the first two medvacs, a Sentry with the first two medvacs, and then another Sentry with the first two medvacs, and then another Stalker before the force has finally been cleaned up. That's a pretty big chunk of army that Creator Prime has lost and that Maru is able to chip away only 12 minutes into the game. He's already been able to snipe off about 5 gas units, the 2 Sentries, the Stalker, the Immortal, and the Colossi, in less than 2 minutes. That's pretty impressive. Now this is going to snowball effect. Because Creator Prime, his army is at his third trying to defend that. His natural is undefended. And this is all part of the reason why you can't really take a third base as a Protoss that fast, especially when going double upgrades, because that's going to delay your gateway army count and your Colossi or splash tech count for a very short time. It's like a small timing window, and Maru's exploiting this right now. This is his second 2 medevac force, so let's see, 2 Marauders, 4 Marauders, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's approximately 2 production rounds because Maru has 3 barracks right now, or he did have 3 barracks. The 4th and 5th are just kicking in now. But his production used to be 2 Marauders and 2 Marines at a time. So this is about 2 production rounds worth of units, including the Widow Mines. And this is how fast Maru's tempo of the game is going. In less than 2 minutes, he's picked off 5 units, and he's starting to do multi-pronged attacks with the rest of his army. And he's just being very, very extremely aggressive. Now Creator Prime has to rush all the way back, and unfortunately he's not going to be able... Ooh, those mine shots, so good. He's not going to be able to save this Nexus even, which is great by Maru, and now the game is pretty much over. He's just falling apart. And even though this is a relatively short game, I'm just going to go through it one more time about how aggressive Maru is. So he did that little poke up, right? He did a little poke up with concussive shells, if we remember earlier in the game. That was the first phase of attack. This is the second phase of attack with the first 2 medevacs. And then the third phase of the attack will be with the third and fourth medevacs and the 2 widow mines and 2 production rounds worth of units. So this force is just checking the third base. And then Maru also splintered off a marine over there to check for the army composition, and he was able to see with that marine splintered off the immortal and 2 sentries were up in front. So now he's gonna make the choice to go in with these first 2 medvacs and snipe a pylon, but then this immortal looks so juicy, so he just gets that, picks up, goes into the main, and already he's done an enormous amount of damage by forcing the sentries to expend all their energy as well. And that Colossi pathing is just, he's asking to die, and he does end up dying. And this has happened in about half a minute, where Maru goes into the natural. Well, first he uses a spotter marine to go into the natural, then he uses his first 2 medevacs to chip away at Creator Prime's units in the natural, then he goes all the way up into the main base and forces a photon overcharge and picks off a Colossi, all in the span of about 40 seconds. That's how aggressive Maru is, by being able to fit in so many punches that he overwhelms his opponent early on. And you really have to have top tier defense to be able to withstand this kind of an assault, because it's just brutal, and it punishes you so much, because every single unit you lose is a snowball effect for later pushes that Maru is going to do. And such a bad decision by Creator Prime to be out here. He really, he had Blink, so he knew he was going to be able to chase it down, but all of these Zealots are completely useless. He doesn't have charge, they only have 1/1, so they're not doing anything. So I also have to question Creator Prime's build a little bit as well. He did collect Colossi and extended thermal range, but he doesn't have any Blink Colossi, and he's not really committing to any specific unit composition, and these Zealots are just completely useless right now. And about another minute in, Maru's able to just go into the natural and snipe Creator Prime's natural, and if it wasn't going to be a natural, it would be about, what, like 10 seconds to snipe the Nexus, so 10 seconds to snipe maybe some Zealots, some more Stalkers, Pylon, Cannon, anything really that he can get his hands on. And this is just Maru being his trademark aggressive style, by being able to hit your opponents like 5 to 6 times. Oops, there we go. Like 5 to 6 times in less than 5 minutes. So it's pretty good if you're able to keep being aggressive like maybe once every minute, but being aggressive, if you're able to be aggressive and to do damage like 3 to 4 times in the span of a minute, then you have what it takes to be the next Maru Prime. Alright guys, so that about wraps up this video. The game was kind of short, but I just wanted to point out how Maru uses his aggressive playstyle to create a snowballing advantage and to basically prevent the Protoss from getting that Death Ball army. And if you guys have any topics or suggestions for my next videos, feel free to leave a comment or to just write a suggestion, and I will read it and get to it as soon as time allows.